This is the new 2024 Lincoln Navigator. It's very similar to the 2023 Lincoln Navigator.
And the 2022.
And the 2021.
And the 2020.
And the 2019.
And the 2018.
But all of a sudden now in 2024, this Navigator just got a whole lot more appealing. Today, let's take a peek at the 2024 Lincoln Navigator and find out why this is now the best buy for a high luxury 3-row SUV. Hello and welcome to Performance on Wheels. My name is Austin. My dad Todd and I make all types of videos on all types of different cars. If you're interested in supporting our journey, be sure to hit like, hit subscribe to help grow this father-son YouTube team. Now, I need to give a quick shout out before we start this video to Apple Lincoln Apple Valley here in Apple Valley, Minnesota for supplying this beautiful 2024 Lincoln Navigator to us. If you're interested in purchasing a new Lincoln, be sure to fly into Minneapolis, drive on down to Apple Valley to this beautiful new facility where they will assist you with all of your needs and any type of new Lincoln product. Dad, take it from there.
There's a lot of competition in the large SUV segment. There's no denying that. You could go through almost every automaker and they have some sort of offering. One of the items that is on the smaller side of the competition is the fact that there's a body on frame. Yes, some of the competitors have that, but the Lincoln Navigator is still like a true truck at its roots, right?
Yes, it is, yeah.
As we alluded to in the intro of our video, this 2024 Lincoln Navigator, although brand new and although the price doesn't necessarily reflect it, it is aging. It's coming to the end of its cycle here in the 4th generation of the Navigator. And there's a reason we're making this video, and it's not just because we're bored on a beautiful Saturday in Minnesota. It's because we have some pretty important news to share that might make the Navigator pretty darn appealing. The Louisville, Kentucky built Lincoln Navigator, as mentioned, is a body on frame. This is the exact same frame that could be found on the F-150 or the Expedition over on the Ford side of the house. And also the powertrain comes from our friends over at Ford. Although we don't refer to it as an EcoBoost over here on the luxury side, but we have essentially that high performance Ford Raptor motor under the hood, the same 10-speed, very loved transmission, and we also have some pretty awesome capabilities, like almost full-size half-ton truck capabilities. If equipped properly, I think up to 8,700 pounds towing. So not only can you pack the family, the kids, the neighbor's dog inside, but you can also tow your whatever 8,700 pound trailer to the lake.
And what's really cool about this powertrain is it gets the Navigator up and out of the hole pretty quick. It's snappy, it feels responsive. It's not fast by any means, but it's also not slow. It has the power that it needs to get this boat up and out of the water. Now, this powertrain also pairs to the Navigator quite nicely for another reason, and that is it's really smooth. It's not as clunky as your average V8 or dual overhead cam 5.0. It is super, super luxurious feeling. It's very smooth going down the road. The power delivery is very smooth. It kind of puts out a refined sound. It's not loud. It's not obnoxious.
Right.
It's quiet. And it suits this car quite well. It is a really good powertrain. And now that the EcoBoost has been being manufactured for quite a while now, I believe the first EcoBoost we saw back in like 2014 now, they've become a lot more reliable over the years. However, if you do pop the hood, it's not pretty.
Right, and Austin, what you mentioned is that high performance out of the hole. One thing to point out in 2024, which it's hard to believe that it was an option prior to 2024, is you can only get like the all-wheel drive now, right? Before you could actually get a rear-wheel drive Navigator, but because you can get that all-wheel drive, you can guarantee that this almost 6,000-pound SUV can get to 60 in the low 5-second range.
Now, believe it or not, Dad, that powertrain we just talked about is not what makes this thing appealing for 2024 versus the previous years of Navigator. It's not the crazy new body design because, believe it or not, it looks exactly the same. The interior does too, except for the screen's a little bit bigger. It's got a big heads-up display and a digital dash, but it's had those for the last couple of years too.
Okay.
None of those things add up.
It's got to be the new blue color that made a 1-year hiatus and now it's back.
It's not that.
It's the Blue Cruise then.
No, it's not the Blue Cruise either.
Okay.
It's none of those things.
All right.
you can now compare this $100,000 Navigator to some cheaper competitor offerings because of a Lincoln 0% APR for the next 72 months on financing a Navigator.
So that's pretty substantial. You said 72 months and you said 0%. So if you're in the game of financing a vehicle like most people are, that makes the aging last model year Navigator extremely appealing on the market right now.
Like extremely appealing. Like you're now comparing the Navigator to the Expedition.
You absolutely are. But like you're also, so we can go a lot of different ways with this, right? So we picked a $100,000 example. This is exactly like a $100,000 MSRP. But there's more to that. Most Lincoln stores, I know for sure that Apple Lincoln and Apple Valley is also taking on some manufacturer incentives as well as some dealer incentives.
Yeah, so this one's priced around $96,000.
I think it's 94 even.
Oh, 94, yeah.
Right.
$94,000.
So depending on the trim, depending on some of the specs, there's some different discounts involved there. But that's another $6,000 off of the MSRP. We haven't even got to the 0% for 72 months yet. So
we need to do the math on that.
We need to do some of the math here, and I'll give you some just rough numbers. At a 6% interest rate over 72 months.
Which is kind of average if you have a good credit score on a
new car
vehicle.
Right? So in today, 2024, what that would equate to is anywhere from $15,000 to $19,000 in interest.
That's insane. Now, over the course of the entire loan.
Right. So now with 0%, you're not paying that $15,000 to $19,000 in interest. Let me give you a comparison. On an $80,000 car with a 6% interest rate, you're going to have the exact same monthly payment as this $100,000 car with 0% interest. So that becomes appealing. If you thought you could only afford a $80,000 car and that's where your budget is, use an Expedition as an example. A top-of-the-line Expedition can sneak up around $80,000, but if you're purchasing it with a 6% interest rate, you're paying the exact same amount at the end of your term as if you were to buy this brand new $100,000 MSRP Navigator.
Now that we are starting to see manufacturers get more vehicles onto their lots, we are starting to see some incentives roll out by them to get rid of those vehicles. 0% financing being one of them here from Lincoln. And just to put that into perspective here, when we're talking about pricing when it comes to financing, the Navigator is no longer compared to the Escalade or compared to the BMW X7. It is now compared to the Tahoe or the Suburban. It's now compared to the Expedition. It's now compared to the lower class, less luxurious trims when it comes to financing prices.
Right.
So you're now competing a $100,000 car to technically $80,000 cars when you're talking about financing versus buying in cash. It's still more money when you buy it in cash. But when you talk about financing and the rates, I mean, just to put into perspective of investing into a stock market, think about buying this thing in full cash or financing it for the next 72 months at a 0% rate. You can, instead of taking or forking all that money out right up front, you can now invest that slowly into the stock market. And technically, if you do it right, have the same amount of return than taking all the money out right up front.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, if you get lucky enough, right?
I mean, that's brilliant.
And that's obviously a smaller part of the population that is buying in cash, but there are people that do it.
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of doing that myself. But anyways, like this opens the door to the consumers that are like, I want a Navigator, but I've always been told you don't buy it new because the second you drive it off the lot, it depreciates. But if you have a brand new car at 0% financing versus one that has depreciated $20,000 at 6% financing, the new one is like more appealing. You have the longer warranty.
You can now look at these as the same payment as an Aviator.
Right.
Like, that's nuts. That's
pretty
absolutely
cool.
nuts.
And this is obviously only a limited time because soon the brand new revised 2025 Navigator is going to be here. So like if you're toying and if you're like cross shopping, the Navigator just became more appealing. Like at the end of the day, it's an absolutely fantastic car to drive. Yes, it does ride more like a truck because it is a truck outside of some suspension tweaks.
Hold on. You can't diss it for riding like a truck because the F-150 rides amazing.
Right.
Like this thing does ride super, super nice.
So
no, it's not like you can feel the bumps for sure.
yeah, so I'm more thinking of if someone's cross-shopping, say, a BMW X7
Yes,
compared
yes.
to a Navigator. An X7 is a unibody platform, or the Mercedes GLS is a unibody platform where they're going to handle more like a car for sure.
Correct.
They're big vehicles. They're not going to like they're going to outperform this on a track type setting.
Absolutely. Well, $100,000 is still a lot of money, even when we're talking about 0% financing.
Right.
So now that we got the big kicker out of the way, let's discuss if this vehicle is truly worth $100,000.
Right, and Austin, there's 3 different trims on the Navigator to choose from: the Premier, the Reserve, and the Black Label. And within those, there are some different levels. But anyways, we chose this one intentionally out of all the different Navigators on the lot we could have chose. This is right at $100,000, like we said. It's the bottom Reserve.
Yep.
The only options that this has on it are the towing package and the paint. The beautiful white metallic paint is like $600 or $700.
Very, very
something
pretty
like
color.
that. So anyways, very basic Reserve. And here's my reason, here's my explanation, and everyone has their own opinions, obviously. Outside of the Black Label, the Navigators like essentially look identical on the outside.
They do.
Like
it's
the
very
grills,
hard to
the
tell.
trim, the wheels, like everything looks the same. The Black Label does step that up a notch, but obviously you're paying for some of those touches.
For sure.
But with the Reserve, you start to get into some of those nice luxury touches, like the ventilated seats. That's where the heads-up display comes in. Some of those items that like you almost think that a vehicle of this caliber must have.
Yes, and this vehicle, let's go ahead and talk about the inside of this thing, right? Because that's where the Navigator matters. It is luxury, and it's very luxurious.
Right.
The seats in the Navigator are my favorite part about this entire car, and just riding in it is my favorite part about this entire car.
I mean, not on the Reserve necessarily, but on the upper trims, we're talking about over 30 positions that you can change the seat. And the Reserve's still a lot, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. When we hop into the front seat of the Navigator here, one of my favorite parts about it is just how plush the leather is. You sink into the seat and there's so much cushion around you. Yes, it does kind of ride like a truck a little bit, but the amount of cushion in the seat makes up for it entirely. It is such a comfortable ride, and the amount of positions that you can change the seat and the functions and the movements of the seat, I mean, I can't get myself uncomfortable in this car in the first row. When we move on to the second row, kind of the same thing.
It is.
I still have heated and cooled functions just like I had up front in the second row. That's controllable by a touchscreen display. I can recline my second row seats. I have a place to put my arm on both sides, the same plush leather that I had in the first row.
Yeah.
Then we move on to the third row. I now have power reclining, unlike manual reclining in my second row. I have this extremely plush leather yet again that is comfortable to sit in.
It is.
Long-term sitting in the third row.
Yeah.
I have cup holders. I have a USB-C to charge up. It is a comfortable third row. Granted, I don't have anywhere to put my arm depending on which side I am sitting on. Each row of the Navigator can fit an adult that is over 6 feet tall very comfortably.
Yeah, as long as that second row is adjusted with its recline appropriately. Me at 6 feet tall could spend time in that third row directly behind the captain's chairs as this one is equipped. I do want to just clarify, you said USB-C. There's only USBs in the back here, along with like a cigarette lighter. So there's an example of some aging tech within the Navigator, right? That there's no USB-Cs for the passengers in the back, which today, like, everyone's got USB-Cs. So
yeah, exactly.
I can almost guarantee next year in 25 we will see that. But going back to the back, now we have groceries, and this is not the L version.
It is not.
Again,
and we parked next to an L before we left. Oh, I think it was near 10 inches of difference. And it's not just they put a bigger butt on the back of this thing. The actual wheelbase is extended, which you can see by seeing the back two wheels parked next to each other here with the fronts lined up quite well.
So when you go to the L, there's a lot less competition. You're talking specifically about like the Escalade and the Suburban. the Expedition Max. In the Lincoln Navigator non-L trim, there's a lot of competition. You're talking about the Infinities, the Range Rovers, the BMWs, the Mercedes. But when you throw that additional 10 inches on, there's a lot less manufacturers that then offer all that space.
0% for 72 on all of them.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Going back to the inside of the Navigator here, and this isn't out of the ordinary either in the marketplace. You can fold your seats down from some control panels on the back driver side. The second row is manual. Or I should say automatic down, but manual up. And that third row is automatic down and up, which is a nice feature, but you do have to walk around the door to pull that second row back up.
The tech in the Navigator isn't necessarily dated, but it isn't also super modern at the same time. But one thing I do really like about the entire package that you get with the Navigator right now is, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, I think it's timeless. I mean, with the tech that's in here, I think it'll last a long period of time before it starts to feel like necessarily old. And same thing with everything on the outside. Like, it still looks pretty modern. I don't think it's necessarily going to look old. Like, it doesn't look brand new. It doesn't look old. Same thing with just the whole layout of the inside. I think it's going to be a design that lasts a long period of time, still feeling very nice and feeling somewhat modern.
Yeah.
So it's not going to like it isn't this crazy high-tech screen or anything that in 5 years is going to look super crazy outdated. Like, it just kind of looks bland almost. Like, it's a very bland, simple, very high luxurious interior.
Simple, good function, easy to use controls. The buttons work well, like it's laid out very well. You're beyond comfortable sitting in any seat within the Navigator, and that's what these are all about. These are amazing if you are the passenger in. Now again, we're talking about a 6,000 pound, like half-ton truck essentially.
It's big.
So if you are the one navigating the Navigator around town, you might have a different opinion on the size. This is like not for the faint of heart. Like, this is a big SUV to navigate around.
It is. And driving it around, it is extremely comfortable, and it is pretty easy to drive with all the tech. We got the 360-degree camera, blind spot assist, all of the fancy tech that you need to navigate this Navigator safely down some crowded city streets, on a highway, or anything like that. It has all of the safety tech that you could possibly imagine. And with the 0% for 72, like we brought up, I think the Navigator is a great pick right now on the market. This thing, I mean, we both got in it today and we both agreed, like, we'd rock one of these if we had the money laying around, if we had a second house, needed a car sitting there.
Yeah.
Like this is the go-to 3-row SUV in my opinion. The Grand Wagoneer has been unbelievably unreliable. Like, it's been absolutely atrocious.
Rough start.
It's not doing great. They're not selling well. So that's what this is up against. And when it comes to overall quality and fit and finish, I would pick this over a Grand Wagoneer all day long. Granted, the tech in the Wagoneer is better, and I think the powertrain's a little bit more fun when you get that 6.4 in there. But this is just a better package.
And what you're saying, Austin, is a key point if you're like really cross-shopping.
Yeah.
You're talking about a vehicle that, yes, you may not have the new hip thing, but you're also talking about a vehicle that is towards the end of its cycle. So at the beginning of its cycle, you're working through some of the tweaks, the refinements. There were some engine issues early on. There was some tech issues early on. Like, that's all been like manipulated, changed.
They're pretty rock solid when it comes to reliability.
Obviously, there's a lot of electronics, so that you always have that possibility of something not responding appropriately as time goes on. But you're talking about a pretty rock solid, reliable vehicle here.
I really do think the Navigator is a great long-term through SUV for you, for your family, for a second house, for anything. The 0% for 72 makes it so much more appealing, and it just truly makes this a great buy on the market right now.
I agree with you.
I think I'd like to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Is this going to be your go-to SUV? Is the Navigator way too dated? I think that we need to appreciate the Navigator right now, because I have a feeling for 2025 there's going to be a lot of changes people aren't going to like, including a lot of rumors about a $200,000 EV Navigator coming.
Wow.
So I'm very curious to see how that does.
What we can guarantee you is when that Navigator comes out, the 2025, we will be one of the first YouTube channels to have videos on that in person giving
Yes, we
you
will.
our opinion. So make sure you hit that subscribe button down below so you can be informed when that video comes. Thank you so much to tuning into our video today on the 2024 Lincoln Navigator Reserve. We'll see you next time.